Ordinance 25 is closed now. Ordinance 26, please.
An ordinance providing for the submission to the electors of the City of Canton question, shall a commission be chosen to frame a charter, and for the election of members of the Charter Commission, and declaring the same to be an emergency.
Leader Morris.
Mr. President, I move we adopt ordinance number 26.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that you adopt ordinance 26. Any remarks? Member Mack.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I was looking at my notes from the last time we talked about the charter issue when we first started talking about it.
It's better?
Yes.
July 22nd, 2013. We've been talking about this issue, discussing this issue, discussing it with our constituents. And now tonight is the time, the choice, whether our constituents should have a say on this important issue. I planned many of my remarks to take on kind of the talking points that we keep hearing over and over about why this is not such a great idea. Those talking points have really died out because I think the public is starting to realize, and people are starting to realize, we've heard tonight, that we can do so much good with this process. And the benefits just simply outweigh any risk that could possibly be. One of the first things that we started to do when we started looking at this issue is we dove into the case law, made sure this isn't going to affect our friends in labor. We got all the cases. Can't hurt prevailing wage, can't hurt collective bargaining, can't hurt civil service. All of that's intact, no matter what. We talked about, as these discussions have been had for the past year, minorities. That's important. It's absolutely important that this commission is fair representative of our demographic. We've analyzed it and analyzed it. And we now have, as we sit here today, persons who are committed to serve on this commission that are guaranteed to be of those top 15 voters. Corey Leonard-Smith's one of them. An excellent attorney, would be hugely valuable on this commission. And we've taken on that issue. We've taken on the issue of ward representation. Is it possible that wards could be eliminated? And we know it's just, if history's any guide, it's so incredibly unlikely, given what happened in 1960. And even with the further research that we've done, we've identified that cities that have had council persons at large are now going back to ward council. They're actually putting them back in place because they should have been got rid of in the first place. And Monroe Falls is actually the city that I'm talking about specifically. Talk about, what about the issue of not having persons from the wards? We want to have every ward represented. And we've gone through and we've identified who we can rival with each other, if I haven't already, to make sure the city is represented. Look at Ward 5, Terry Prater, one of our fellow colleagues. You look at Ward 3, certainly R.A. Mallon would be an excellent candidate. You look at Ward 6, with Derek Simpson, a huge understanding of city government, would be a great choice to be on the Charter Commission. And so we have laid all this groundwork where we have really eliminated fear of the unknown. And we have Judge Reinbold addressing this body. He would be an excellent person to be on this commission. I believe he would be. And we have Alan Schulman on this commission. We have Joe Martucci. How anyone could still believe that this charter is going to be a product that does fairly and accurately and efficiently and effectively move this city forward, I just can't see it. And the evidence to me is just completely overwhelming. There have been some new points that have kind of been brought up in recent days. One is cost. Just like we've approached every issue methodically, we know exactly how much is this going to cost us. There's two sources of cost on this issue. The first is with the Stark County Board of Elections. There's an additional cost for advertising, putting it on the ballot. When I talked to Jeanette Mullane about this cost, you have to remember, we're putting it on the ballot when statewide issues are on the ballot. She said to me, in terms of cost, quotes, "This is the election year to put this on the ballot. Putting it on the ballot right now saves us the most money possible. We cannot do it any cheaper because the costs are paid by the state." The other cost, which is somewhat daunting at first, is the notion of if this commission is formed, they have to send out draft of this, the actual commission, the actual charter document to every registered voter in the city of Canton. Think about that. Gosh, it's 47,000 people. 47,000 people have to receive a piece of mail. That's going to be $100,000. Well, again, we went through it methodically. That's going to be $15,000. We have a quote here from Slimes and Prairie, still waiting on one. And not only that, just to kind of stress how important this is, to make sure there are no lingering fears. That entire $15,000 is going to be donated. 25% of the donations are already raised with them. People sitting in this room. This will literally be the first time in municipal government I'm aware of where a charter is put before voters at almost no cost into a municipality. We've heard a lot of people say, it's not broke, why fix it? Canton's perfect, there's nothing we can do better. I don't prescribe to that. Certainly I love my city like we all do. There are such dramatic things coming down the pipe. One of the things I did today is continuing looking at this here. I called the law director for the city of Newark. And they just recently adopted a charter in 1997, which I know everyone here knows by now, is a charter that I'm very, very much in favor of because they don't make dramatic changes to their city government. And I talked to him, his name was Douglas Savage. I said, what was the sense in Newark when this document was passed? He said it was very freeing for the council members. They've done all kinds of things that they've never been able to do before. The two things he was most proud of, they have state-of-the-art vicious dog ordinance. Now they have a charter that can do things that we cannot. And they also have modified the restrictions on where sexual predators can live. And we can't really go down now, but they can. They've kept everything in place. And now they are able to fix those things. There's something big coming down the pike from this perspective that we all know about, this NIP program. We were provided a list from Director Miller, $4.2 million. We're going to be demolishing these houses, but unlike any other program we've had before, the city has to take ownership of those lots. They have to mow those lots. They have to hopefully get rid of those lots. As we all know here today, how does a statutory city get rid of public property? It's a pretty cumbersome, egregious process. The cost for advertising and this received bids are everything more than the lots are worth. Of course, you know where I'm going with this, with a charter to fix that. And I fear that if we don't, we're going to have a problem. Unavoidably with this process, timelines are planned. I will be the first person to admit that. Now, let me take a step back. We've been working on this for a year. We've been talking about this for a year. This was actually a communication that you all received on January 22nd of this year. So you had it for 6 months, and you thought about it for 6 months, talked to your constituents about it for 6 months. But the time frames to get signatures to serve on a commission is like 23 days. 23. There's nothing we can do to change that. We can't make it any longer because that's what the Ohio Constitution says. It's 120 days or 60 days before the election, and it has to be in that window. The cost would be exorbitant if we were to try to do this in the spring for the Board of Elections. So if we do it next year, the time frames are going to be just as tight. And we have a 50 signature requirement, which that was a requirement that we put on this issue because that's consistent with statewide candidates. They're statewide candidates. And we can change that tonight. If there's someone who thinks 50 signatures are too much, it wasn't brought up in the committee, but now's the time. You can amend this on the floor. Make it 15, make it 20. Whatever is most fair, most appropriate, make sure that the voters are going to be heard. Because if we think about this issue, and let me frame the issue. This is purely about letting the voters decide. You are only voting on whether the voters to have their voice heard on this issue. We trust the voters all the time, right? Pass our levies. They elect our president. They elect us. And it would seem like we should be able to trust them to make this decision. There's this quote, and when I was looking, back during committee meetings at JFK on our lawn, so a lot of you guys know that I'm on my phone a lot during council meetings. I'm actually doing work when I'm doing it. I was looking at quotes of JFK. And JFK actually had a quote that I think was just unmistakably on point. A nation that is afraid to let its people judge the good and the bad, the truth and the falsehood, in an open market is a nation afraid of its people. This night, tonight, could be historic. To make history, you have to have courage. There was courage when the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed. There was courage when the Affordable Care Act was passed. Certainly this, I'm not saying charter is just as significant as those issues, but to the city of Canton, it is. So I would ask you, let your name be remembered forever in changing this city for the better. Have courage. Do not be afraid. Have faith in your voters. Let the voters decide.